purpose of clarifying some of the sections in the electricity bill that has just been passed by the Senate. One of the novel provisions, as you mentioned here, is the introduction, or rather the expansion or the opening up of the space where state now can generate their own power, transmit and distribute. Any state that have the capacity to do that will now be licensed to do so. And also knowing that the issue of electricity was under the concurrent part of the Constitution, the Act has allowed states now who have the capacity to license people who intend to operate mini grids, or not just mini grids, operate power plants within the state. The only thing is that the state licensed power plant will not be allowed to transmit power beyond their state. It will be restricted within the state. Anything that is beyond the state will be licensed by NEC, the federal NEC. In the bill as well, state who also have the capacity can have their own regulatory authorities, the same as you have at the federal. Those ones will be responsible for licensing people with mini grid. Individuals who have the capacity can also generate their own power, transmit and distribute within the franchise areas that will be given to them by either the state or the national NEC. So also the issue of renewable energy is now properly put and have legal backing. If we decide to generate maybe 1 megawatts of power using solar as a source of energy, that also is incorporated and provided for. So all of this have legal backing for whoever wants to generate power. And I think that is the only way that the power situation in the country will be solved. We're looking at ways that we can solve it. Elsewhere, for instance, I was in China a long time ago. Most of the power that people enjoy in some villages in China, and I went to Vietnam as well, these are powers that are generated by even communities and distributed within these communities, and they have 24/7 light in those communities. So now, I believe that a college of National Assembly journalists can come together and generate at least the power that can supply power to them in this place, and even sell it to other committee rooms and make some money. So that is to say that the space is now open. There is very little restriction as to who will generate power and distribute. Before, you must necessarily generate power, put it on the grid, and use the national grid for you to transmit and distribute. With the coming into effect, when the president eventually signed this act, any one of us who have the capacity can generate. There is also a provision there that allows you anything below 1 megawatt, that is 1 megawatt down. You don't even need a license to generate that and distribute, which is something that makes it good for people who obtaining the license could be a hindrance. You don't need a license. If you are generating below 1 megawatt, you can generate that and just distribute. And go to your state. If there is a dam there, you want to build and do that. So there are a lot of new provisions in the bill. We've also expanded the powers of NEC as a regulator so that they can now regulate the power sector properly. For instance, the issue of failing licensees, like the discos that have been taken over. With the new bill, there are steps that will take other than what is happening now. We've provided adequately for such eventuality in case you are licensed and you breach the terms of the license, or you are unable to cope with the financial requirement. There are provisions that will take care of that. NEC have the powers to do a whole lot of things so that we can have a stable power supply in the country. I don't know whether there are other provisions that you want to. Yeah. The initial intendment of the privatization in 2013, based on the ESTRA, that is the Reform Act of 2005, was for the federal government to unbundle the sector in such a manner that they will have some bit of control, because federal government was still subsidizing electricity tariff. And there's no way, if I'm paying money into something, that I can just let go like that, because the distribution end is the last chain in the power chain, distribution end. So the federal government completely divested their interest in the generation sector. But the distribution, that is where me and you are impacted. There was a need for them to still have some level of control. But if we look at the strategic plan in the power sector, it has 3 stages. One is the transition stage, which is what we are inside now, where the federal government controls a whole lot. Then you have the medium stage, where partly controlled, and then you have the long-term stage, where everything will be based on demand and supply. That was expected. The expectation was that in the long term, you can decide that it's okay, you'll stay in Abuja here. You are going to hook on to Abuja Disco or Jos Disco or any other Kaduna Disco. That is what is expected. That is what happens elsewhere. So you have the latitude to change, to use any service provider. Just like we have we have MTN, we have Glo, we have Etisalat and all of that. I might decide that mine is MTN, or I can even carry the 2, like some of you are carrying even 3 phones now. So, but the way it is going, that seems to be like a mirage. And so this Electricity Act will be able to address that. For instance, in the environment, in the area where you are living, if you have a gentleman there with enough money who decides that he can use solar and generate 1 megawatt and distribute that and give you 24/7 light, and you pay slightly higher than what you are paying to probably Abuja Disco, that will be your choice. That is where this is headed to. That was the intendment of the unbundling of the sector, that this whole thing will become competitive. When they say competitive electricity market, that is what it means. It is for us to be able to say, I don't want MTN, I can go to Etisalat. So if we don't want Abuja Disco, my friend here is generating power. It is him you want, you go there, you pay higher. If we go to my friend here, maybe he's charging less, he's using maybe another source of energy to generate power, he's charging less, depends on the cost of production of the kind of source of power, source of energy he's using. So this act opened the space. It will attract foreign investors. There are people outside who have money who want to come into the country and generate their own power. But the restrictions on transmission and distribution has militated against that. So now, once the president signed this, I think that about 60% of the power problem in the country will be sorted out, because a whole lot of people will be generating power and selling. Some don't need license. 1 megawatt of power is a lot of power in a place where people are not using industries. It's a lot of power, and you can be making money without any person disturbing you. So I think that is the what it's intended to do. Yeah.
Sorry.
Let me be gender sensitive. Yeah.
All right. In terms of regulation now,
Yeah.
if you
Stating, like I said, once the market become competitive, I said the initial intendment of unbundling the sector was to make the electricity market competitive. Once it's competitive, you have options. Now, maybe MTN charges are higher than Etisalat. You might decide that you don't want MTN, you go for Etisalat. So the market is intended to be competitive. So, and break the monopoly. No person is going to have a monopoly. What you are afraid is a monopoly, where Qatar will decide that they will decide on price. I don't think that will happen, because renewable energy is going to come in. And it is easier, because I've tried it. I have 2 mini grid in my senatorial constituency. And they are working very well. These are in villages where people have never seen light before. I'm not charging them now because it's part of my constituency responsibility. But if we decide that you are building a mini grid, that didn't cost maybe about 200 million of my constituency project. I built one is 200 million, one is 150. So somebody with 100 million can have a 40 megawatts mini grid where you'll be supplying people 40 kilowatts of mini grid where you'll be supplying people within a limited area and making money. And you'll be surprised how much money you can make from that. So it's not going to be any monopoly in the market once it becomes competitive. And with the bill, I don't think that the issue of monopoly will set in the legislation.